Hey, it worked. Hi. The going live button didn't work for ages. I thought it was going to have to do a whole new link again. Thank you, John, for letting me know about the COVID update. Completely forgot that was today. Aha, got you. Got you, you little fuckers. Strepsils from the horror maze, which does mean they're out of date a little bit, but they've got anesthetic to numb the throat, so I'm going to get high off some expired antibacterial strepsils. Oh no, I'm going to be sucking on a strepsil and I won't be able to read a book to you. Oh, I'm so smart, me. So smart. I mean, there have to be teens who've tried to get high from taking too many strepsils, right? Like, that has to be a thing. Come on. And knowing that the ketamine clinic has promised to be open, for me at least, on the 28th, whether we're level 3 or level 4, I am no longer fucking shitting my mind at the prospect of another week. Yeah, so if you have a sniffle or a snort or a sore throat, my throat is a bit scratchy because I've been snoring. And I do have a bit of a sniffle. That's what makes me snore so hard. So, yeah. Gonna get a flu shot tomorrow. Remembering the last time I got a flu shot? Do you remember that, Danny? And you hated the needles. So I told you that I hate having my head held underwater. And, like, it doesn't make you a baby to hate doing something. But doctors don't usually hold your head underwater. So it doesn't really come up in my adult life. That was a good time. Apart from you being terrified the whole time. That sucked. But, the rest of it was good. Okay. Come here, Fitzik. Hello. Who's that? Yeah, good boys. One more. Yeah, exactly. That's what I would have thought if the doctor had held my head underwater. It would have been really annoying at the time, and then afterwards, This is from the big box of Temptations that Tali sent me. For some reason, the lid design makes it really hard to get out way too many treats for your cat. All gone, okay? All gone? All gone, little Mr. Fritz. Ooh. Ooh. Nice? It was nice. Oh, it was nice. Okay, that's good. That's good. We'll put the microphone up here. No, we won't. That part of the couch is occupied. Okay, you want to help me read? Help me read, you little bugger? I've been locked in with these fucking cats. Okay. Recap. It's such a great way to do it, isn't it? It's a great way to do it. It's like I've got a little news anchor. I'm the big news anchor and he's the little one. we go. You can sit there. All right. Yes, last time on Wuthering Heights. Well, Heathcliff fucking sucks. He wants to kill Edgar, whatever. So Heathcliff has married Isabella Linton, Edgar's sister, because she is the heir to all of his goods. Streps was working. I cannot believe this. Fitz and Flora have learned Niobe's trick of standing like that when they want to go outside. There you go, outside. They both just learned it. They are some of the dumbest creatures in the entire world. Also, yes, I did put on a push-up bra today. It's for morale. It's for your morale. Yeah, he's a real podcaster now. He's had an awkward moment on the stream where he shows his butt to frankly, a mentally ill woman. Not your best look, my dude. So yeah, Heathcliff and Isabella have returned to Wuthering Heights, where he is making her life miserable. She's becoming deeply depressed, and I know he does have rabbit feet, Mr. Fitz. And Nellie comes around to see them, like, so this sucks, just like I told you. And Heathcliff's like, I don't give a fuck, how's Kathy? And then he makes fun of Isabella for thinking that he was actually a romantic hero, that there were these hidden depths to him. Moving the microphone up. It's just a cold. So yeah, Heathcliff does this amazing speech about how he's not a nice guy. He's never pretended to be a nice guy. Danke, Evelyn. And Isabella is a dumb bitch for thinking that there is like there's someone in there, He's like, no, what you see is what you get. I'm a motherfucker. I'm a horrible dude. And I think that part of Wuthering Heights should be taught in English classes. I usually don't think English classes should be taught at all because they just suck all the joy out of stories, but that bit we should teach to everybody. So anyway, Isabella's side of the story is that Heathcliff has her a prisoner there, and he's always got an excuse for why she can't leave and go back to her brother. Heathcliff's story is that Isabella, calls him a monster and freaks out, and then she's just like, she comes wheedling back like, oh, you have a good heart, I know it, I'm still in love with you. And Isabella's like, the fuck I do. And I don't really know who to believe. Ordinarily, I would always believe Isabella because, it's a classic pattern of abuse, telling people on the outside that actually, no, she wants to be here. This is just her being crazy. But Heathcliff has not exactly lied this entire time to make himself look better or whatever. So, in real life, I would not question it, but in the book, who knows? So, what happens is... Oh, yes, right. Nellie's like, well, Catherine's really sick and she's unhappy, and Heathcliff's like, I'm going over. And Nellie goes, no, you can't go over. I'm not going to tell you when, you're going to kill Edgar, and that's going to kill Kathy. Because she mustn't be vexed. That's her medical condition. She can never, ever be vexed. I think I have it too. and every toddler. What's up, Bella? You vexed? Flora. And Heathcliff's like, well, I'm going over there anyway. I'm either going to see Edgar there and kill him, because fuck that guy, I hate him. Or, Nellie, you can arrange a time for me to come around when Edgar's not there, because I am going to see Kathy. Fuck you, I'll burn the world down to see her. And, generations of idiots have thought, that's so fucking romantic. It kind of is, in that it's a romance between two really awful people. But, definitely not something to model your hero after. So, we are going back to Mr. Lockwood very briefly. God. He's got a little bit of a cold or a flu or an ague or something. And so Nellie's off. And the doctor's arrived for Mr. Lockwood. And he's like, thinking about it, I really have to be careful not to make Catherine Heathcliff fall in love with me. What if she's just like her mother? She's never satisfied. I love that song. And it's like, dude, Catherine Heathcliff has no interest in you, and she never has. Why would you think she did? I just want to take a little moment while the strips are still dissolving. What? Come on. To mention something that I read once. This isn't my, original idea or anything, but that Wuthering Heights is such a claustrophobic book. There are like 2 locations, and there aren't enough names to go around. Can't remember where I read this. It was somewhere in the uni library 1,000 years ago. What are you doing? God Christ, you're annoying. Yeah, there aren't enough names to go around. I mean, you've got Edgar Linton, Isabella Linton, and then Kathy, who's described as Mrs. Linton, and then Isabella's described as Miss Linton. You've got Hareton Earnshaw, Hindley Earnshaw, Catherine Earnshaw. And you've got the name Heathcliff, which is a first name and a last name. There just aren't enough names for everybody, and the 2 Catherines, obviously. So it's yeah, there's a lot going on. There's also another character who's not made an appearance yet, so I won't name him. Or her. Or them. Shit, I really got to get with saying, them. Because no, I didn't make a mistake. Okay. Sorry, we both saw a bird. Wuthering Heights, Chapter 15. Another week over, and I am so many days nearer health and spring. I have now heard all my neighbours' history at different sittings, as the housekeeper could spare time from more important occupations. I'll continue it in her own words, only a little condensed. She is, on the whole, a very fair narrator, and I don't think I could improve her style. You absolutely couldn't, Lockwood, you dumb bitch. Nellie is so much smarter than you. Yeah, just angling that down so that you can see a little bit of the morale. In the evening, she said, the evening of my visit to the Heights, I knew as well as if I saw him that Mr. Heathcliff was about the place, and I shunned going out, because I still carried his letter in my pocket and didn't want to be threatened or teased any more. I had made up my mind not to give it till my master went somewhere, as I could not guess how its receipt would affect Catherine. The consequence was that it did not reach her before the lapse of 3 days. The fourth was Sunday, and I brought it into her room after the family were gone to church. You know Heathcliff's not at church. There was a manservant left to keep the house with me, and we generally made a practice of locking the doors during the hours of service. But on that occasion, the weather was so warm and pleasant that I set them wide open. And to fulfill my engagement, as I knew who would be coming, I told my companion that the mistress wished very much for some oranges, and he must run over to the village and get a few to be paid for on the morrow. He departed, and I went upstairs. Oh, Nellie. One might almost say, whoa, Nellie. Whoa. I haven't done that joke the entire time. I think I've been very restrained. Mrs. Linton sat in a loose white dress, with a light shawl over her shoulders, in the recess of the open window as usual. Her thick, long hair had been partly removed at the beginning of her illness, and now she wore it simply combed in its natural tresses over her temples and neck. Her appearance was altered, as I had told Heathcliff, but when she was calm there seemed unearthly beauty in the change. The flash of her eyes had been succeeded by a dreamy and melancholy softness. They no longer gave the impression of looking at the objects around her. They appeared always to gaze beyond, and far beyond. You would have said out of this world. Then the paleness of her face, its haggard aspect having vanished as she recovered flesh, and the peculiar expression arising from her mental state, though painfully suggestive of their causes, added to the touching interest which she awakened, and invariably to me, I know, and to any person who saw her, I should think, refuted more tangible proofs of convalescence, and stamped her as one doomed to decay. A book lay spread on the sill before her, and the scarcely perceptible wind fluttered its leaves at intervals. I believe Linton had laid it there, for she never endeavoured to divert herself with reading or occupation of any kind, and he would spend many an hour in trying to entice her attention to some subject which had formerly been her amusement. She was conscious of his aim, and in her better moods endured his efforts placidly, only showing their uselessness by now and then suppressing a wearied sigh, and checking him at last with the saddest of smiles and kisses. At other times she would turn petulantly away and hide her face in her hands, or even push him off angrily, and then he took care to let her alone, for he was certain of doing no good. "You're vexing her, Edgar." "She mustn't be vexed." I'm not sure if Kathy is dying of consumption or depression. Like it's literally killing her. Not sure. Either that or she just fakes dying so well that she actually does. I wouldn't put it past her. Gimmerton Chapel bells were still ringing, and the full, mellow flow of the beck in the valley came soothingly on the air. It was a sweet substitute for the yet absent murmur of the summer foliage, which drowned that music about the grange when the trees were in leaf. At Wuthering Heights it always sounded on quiet days following a great thaw or a season of steady rain. And of Wuthering Heights Catherine was thinking as she listened. That is, if she thought or listened at all. But she had the vague, distant look I mentioned before, which expressed no recognition of material things, either by ear or eye. "There's a letter for you, Mrs. Linton," I said, and sucked on a strepsil and finally bit it to get rid of the damn thing. Hello, number 6 viewer. We have basically established the fact that that everyone in the household is at church. Heathcliff is on his way. Hi, Dick. Hi. Watch it afterwards. And Kathy Kathy is dying of sheer cussedness. There's a letter for you, Mrs. Linton, I said, gently inserting it in one hand that rested on her knee. You must read it immediately because it wants an answer. Shall I break the seal? Yes, she answered, without altering the direction of her eyes. I opened it. It was very short. Now, I continued, read it. She drew away her hand and let it fall. I replaced it in her lap and stood waiting till it should please her to glance down. But that movement was so long delayed that at last I resumed, Must I read it, ma'am? It is from Mr. Heathcliff. There was a start and a troubled gleam of recollection and a struggle to arrange her ideas. She lifted the letter and seemed to peruse it, and when she came to the signature she sighed. Yet still I found she had not gathered its import, for upon my desiring to hear her reply she merely pointed to the name, and gazed at me with mournful and questioning eagerness. I don't know if Kathy's dying of depression or if she's kind of just turning into a dog. Not a happy one. Well, he wishes to see you, said I, guessing her need of an interpreter. He's in the garden by this time, and impatient to know what answer I shall bring. As I spoke, I observed a large dog lying on the sunny grass beneath, raise its ears as if about to bark, and then smoothing them back, announced by a wag of the tail that someone approached whom it did not consider a stranger. Okay, the dogs like him. First likable thing about Heathcliff. Mrs. Linton bent forward and listened breathlessly. The minute after a step traversed the hall, the open house was too tempting for Heathcliff to resist walking in. Most likely, he supposed that I was inclined to shirk my promise, and so resolved to trust to his own audacity. With straining eagerness, Catherine gazed towards the entrance of her chamber. He did not hit the right room directly. She motioned me to admit him, but he found it out ere I could reach the door, and in a stride or two was at her side and had her grasped in his arms. I'm sorry, I just want to take a little moment here to imagine Heathcliff kicking open a bunch of doors, yelling, Kathy, Kathy, I love you. And it's always the wrong door, 3 or 4 times. You can hear him getting closer and you're like, it's not going to be that impressive when he gets here, but I'm going to have to pretend it is. It's just funny. It's funny that he keeps trying to throw open the wrong door. But anyway, he's got Kathy in his arms now. Ooh. Ooh. I don't have a temperature right now, but we'll see about that. He neither spoke nor loosed his hold for some 5 minutes, during which period he bestowed more kisses than ever he gave in his life before, I dare say. But then my mistress had kissed him first, and I plainly saw that he could hardly bear for downright agony to look into her face. Guys, they never want to look at you while they're kissing you. I can't remember. One time I was sitting on the bus and I saw 2 people sitting in front of me, and then they kissed each other, and for a second I thought, oh no, they've made a mistake. Their heads are too close together, and then I remembered what kissing was. Just a little extra. The same conviction had stricken him as me from the instant he beheld her, that there was no prospect of ultimate recovery there. She was fated and sure to die. Oh, Kathy, oh, my life, how can I bear it? Was the first sentence he uttered, in a tone that did not seek to disguise his despair. And now he stared at her so earnestly that I thought the very intensity of his gaze would bring tears into his eyes, but they burned with anguish. They did not melt. What now? Said Catherine, leaning back and returning his look with a suddenly clouded brow. Her humour was a mere vein for constantly varying caprices. You and Edgar have broken my heart, Heathcliff, and you both come to bewail the deed to me as if you were the people to be pitied. I shall not pity you, not I. You have killed me, and thriven on it, I think. How strong you are! How many years do you mean to live after I'm gone? God, I love Kathy. She's a fucking awful person, but... Oh, Heathcliff, I just wanted to see you one last time to tell you, you did this, you killed me, I blame you. You prick. Fuck off. Heathcliff had knelt on one knee to embrace her. He attempted to rise, but she seized his hair and kept him down. I wish I could hold you, she continued bitterly, till we were both dead. I shouldn't care what you suffered. I care nothing for your sufferings. And why shouldn't you suffer? I do. Will you forget me? Will you be happy when I am in the earth? Will you say 20 years hence, that's the grave of Catherine Earnshaw? I loved her long ago and was wretched to lose her, but it is past. I've loved many others since. My children are dearer to me than she was. And at death I shall not rejoice that I am going to her. I shall be sorry that I must leave them. Will you say so, Heathcliff? Don't torture me till I'm as mad as yourself, cried he, wrenching his head free and grinding his teeth. So romantic. The two, to a cool spectator, made a strange and fearful picture. Well might Catherine deem that heaven would be a land of exile to her, unless with her mortal body she cast away her moral character also. Oh, Nelly, meow. Her present countenance had a wild vindictiveness in its white cheek, and a bloodless lip and scintillating eye, and she retained in her closed fingers a portion of the locks she had been grasping. She pulled his hair up. As to her companion, while raising himself with one hand, he had taken her arm with the other. And so inadequate was his stock of gentleness to the requirements of her condition, that on his letting go I saw 4 distinct impressions left blue in the colourless skin. Oh, Heathcliff. Too strong, Lenny. Are you possessed with a devil, he pursued savagely, to talk in that manner to me when you are dying? Do you reflect that all those words will be branded in my memory, and eating deeper eternally after you have left me? You know you lie to say I have killed you, and Catherine, you know I could as soon forget you as my existence. Is it not sufficient for your infernal selfishness, that while you are at peace I shall writhe in the torments of hell? I shall not be at peace, moaned Catherine, recalled to a sense of physical weakness by the violent, unequal throbbing of her heart, which beat visibly and audibly under this excess of agitation. She said nothing further till the paroxysm was over. Then she continued, more kindly. I'm not wishing you greater torment than I have, Heathcliff. I only wish us never to be parted. And should a word of mine distress you hereafter, think I feel the same distress underground. And for my own sake, forgive me. Come here and kneel down again. You never harmed me in your life. Nay, if you nurse anger, that will be worse to remember than my harsh words. Won't you come here again? Do. They love all of this. Not the dying part, they're pretty miffed about that. Heathcliff went to the back of her chair and leant over, but not so far as to let her see his face, which was livid with emotion. She bent round to look at him. He would not permit it. Turning abruptly, he walked to the fireplace, where he stood, silent, with his back towards us. Mrs. Linton's glance followed him suspiciously. Every movement woke a new sentiment in her. After a pause and a prolonged gaze, she resumed, addressing me in accents of indignant disappointment. Oh, you see, Nelly, that he would not relent a moment to keep me out of the grave. That is how I'm loved. Well, never mind. That is not my Heathcliff. I shall love mine yet, and take him with me. He's in my soul. And, added she musingly, The thing that irks me most is this shattered prison, after all. I'm tired of being enclosed here. I'm wearying to escape into that glorious world and to be always there, not seeing it dimly through tears and yearning for it through the walls of an aching heart, but really with it and in it. Nellie, you think that you are better and more fortunate than I, in full health and strength. You are sorry for me. Very soon that will be altered. I shall be sorry for you. I shall be incomparably beyond and above you all. I wonder he won't be near me, she went on to herself. I thought he wished it. Heathcliff, dear, you should not be sullen now. Do come to me, Heathcliff. In her eagerness, she rose and supported herself on the arm of the chair. At that earnest appeal, he turned to her, looking absolutely desperate. His eyes, wide and wet, at last flashed fiercely on her. His breast heaved convulsively. In an instant they held asunder, and then how they met I hardly saw, but Catherine made a spring, and he caught her, and they were locked in an embrace from which I thought my mistress would never be released alive. In fact, to my eyes she seemed directly insensible. He flung himself into the nearest seat, and on my approaching hurriedly to ascertain if she had fainted, he gnashed at me, and foamed like a mad dog, and gathered her to him with greedy jealousy. I did not feel as if I were in the company of a creature of my own species. It appeared that he would not understand, though I spoke to him, so I stood off and held my tongue in great perplexity. This is such a dramatic chapter. Nothing on fanfiction.net really matches this, I imagine. A movement of Catherine's relieved me a little presently. She put up her hand to clasp his neck and bring her cheek to his as he held her, while he, in return, covering her with frantic caresses, said wildly, You teach me how cruel you've been, cruel and false. Why did you despise me? Why did you betray your own heart, Cathy? I have not one word of comfort. You deserve this. You have killed yourself. Yes, you may kiss me and cry and wring out my kisses and tears. They'll blight you. They'll damn you. You loved me. Then what right had you to leave me? What right, answer me, for the poor fancy you felt for Linton? Because misery and degradation and death and nothing that God or Satan could inflict would have parted us. You, of your own will, did it. I have not broken your heart. You have broken it. And in breaking it, you have broken mine. So much the worse for me that I am strong. Do I want to live? What kind of living will it be when you... Oh God, would you like to live with your soul in the grave? After Cathy dies, his soul will be in her grave and his body will be walking around. Yeah, she's just like, well, I probably shouldn't leave the room. And also, I just want to watch this. I want to watch highlight clips from the relationship of Cathy and Heathcliff. Let me alone. Let me alone, sobbed Catherine. If I've done wrong, I'm dying for it. It is enough. You left me too, but I won't upbraid you. I forgive you. Forgive me. I forgive you, she says. I'm an angel. It is hard to forgive and to look at those eyes and feel those wasted hands, he answered. Kiss me again, and don't let me see your eyes. I forgive what you have done to me. I love my murderer, but yours, how can I? They were silent, their faces hid against each other and washed by each other's tears. At least I suppose the weeping was on both sides, as it seemed Heathcliff could weep on a great occasion like this. I grew very uncomfortable meanwhile, for the afternoon wore fast away. The man whom I had sent off returned from his errand, and I could distinguish, by the shine of the western sun up the valley, a concourse thickening outside Gimmerton Chapel porch. Yes. She's watching them and she's like, well, that won't work. Why would anyone? Huh. Yeah, I can't look away. Service is over, I announced. My master will be here in half an hour. Heathcliff groaned a curse and strained Catherine closer. She never moved. Ere long, I perceived a group of the servants passing up the road towards the kitchen wing. Mr. Linton was not far behind. He opened the gate himself and sauntered slowly up, probably enjoying the lovely afternoon that breathed as soft as summer. Now he is here, I exclaimed. For heaven's sake, hurry down. You'll not meet anyone on the front stairs. Do be quick and stay among the trees till he is fairly in. I must go, Cathy, said Heathcliff, seeking to extricate himself from his companion's arms. But if I live, I'll see you again before you are asleep. I won't stray 5 yards from your window. You must not go, she answered, holding him as firmly as her strength allowed. You shall not, I tell you. For 1 hour, he pleaded earnestly. Not for 1 minute, she replied. Heathcliff is such a bastard, but she just tells him what's what. I must. Linton will be up immediately, persisted the alarmed intruder. He would have risen and unfixed her fingers by the act. She clung fast, gasping. There was mad resolution in her face. No, she shrieked. Oh, don't go. It is the last time. Edgar will not hurt us. Heathcliff, I shall die. I shall die. Damn the fool, there he is, cried Heathcliff, sinking back into his seat. Hush, my darling. Hush, hush, Catherine, I'll stay. If he shot me so, I'd expire with a blessing on my lips. And then they were fast again. I heard my master mounting the stairs. The cold sweat ran from my forehead. I was horrified. Are you saying this stuff out loud, Josh? Because you know Mime's unallowed to do that. Speaking of which, if you haven't seen the music video for Kate Bush's Wuthering Heights, the way she dances is explained pretty much by the fact she trained as a mime. True story. Are you going to listen to her ravings? I said passionately. She does not know what she says. Will you ruin her because she has not wit to help herself? Get up. You could be free instantly. That is the most diabolical deed that ever you did. We are all done for. Master, mistress, and servant. I wonder who has like the right to do whiteface. I guess people without the 1-drop rule. I don't think I know any. I wrung my hands and cried out, and Mr. Linton hastened his step at the noise. In the midst of my agitation, I was sincerely glad to observe that Catherine's arms had fallen relaxed and her head hung down. She's fainted, or dead, I thought. So much the better. Far better that she should be dead than lingering a burden and a misery maker to all about her. Oh, Nellie. Edgar sprang to his unbidden guest, blanched with astonishment and rage. What he meant to do I cannot tell. However, the other stopped all demonstrations at once by placing the lifeless-looking form in his arms. Look there, he said. Unless you be a fiend, help her first, and then you shall speak to me. He walked into the parlour and sat down. Mr. Linton summoned me, and with great difficulty and after resorting to many means, we managed to restore her to sensation. But she was all bewildered. She sighed and moaned and knew nobody. Edgar, in his anxiety for her, forgot her hated friend. I did not. I went at the earliest opportunity and besought him to depart, affirming that Catherine was better and that he should hear from me in the morning how she passed the night. I shall not refuse to go out of doors, he answered, but I shall stay in the garden. And Nellie, mind you keep your word tomorrow. I shall be under those larch trees. Mind, or I pay another visit, whether Linton be in or not. He sent a rapid glance through the half-open door of the chamber, and ascertaining that what I stated was apparently true, delivered the house of his luckless presence. That's the end of the chapter. It's a shorter chapter than usual, but the next one's very short as well. Yeah, right. We're going to do the next chapter. We're going to go straight through because it's a logical point to break off the video, and we're only at 40 minutes, so. Wuthering Heights, chapter 16. About 12 o'clock that night was born the Catherine you saw at Wuthering Heights, a puny 7-month child, and 2 hours after the mother died, having never recovered sufficient consciousness to miss Heathcliff or know Edgar. Even death is cucking Edgar at this point. The latter's distraction at his bereavement is a subject too painful to be dwelt on. Its after effects showed how deep the sorrow sunk. A great addition in my eyes was his being left without an heir. I bemoaned that as I gazed on a feeble orphan, and I mentally abused old Linton for what was only natural partiality, the securing his estate to his own daughter instead of his son's. Which means essentially that Thrushcross Grange and everything that they own goes to Edgar if he has a son, not if he has a daughter. And then it goes to Isabella. So it's not like strictly agnatic. It's, whatever. An unwelcome infant it was, poor thing. It might have wailed out of life. Nobody cared a morsel during those first hours of existence. We redeemed the neglect afterwards, but its beginning was as friendless as its end is likely to be. Next morning, bright and cheerful out of doors, Stole softened in through the blinds of the silent room and suffused the couch and its occupant with a mellow, tender glow. Edgar Linton had his head laid on the pillow and his eyes shut. His young and fair features were almost as deathlike as those of the form beside him, and almost as fixed, but his was the hush of exhausted anguish, and hers of perfect peace. Her brow smooth, her lids closed, her lips wearing the expression of a smile. No angel in heaven could be more beautiful than she appeared. She knew she was an angel. And I partook of the infinite calm in which she lay. My mind was never in a holier frame than while I gazed on that untroubled image of divine rest. I instinctively echoed the words she had uttered a few hours before. Incomparably beyond and above us all, whether still on earth or now in heaven, her spirit is at home with God. I don't know if it be a peculiarity in me, but I am seldom otherwise than happy while watching in the chamber of death, should no frenzied or despairing mourner share the duty with me. I see a repose that neither earth nor hell can break, and I feel an assurance of the endless and shadowless hereafter, the eternity they have entered, where life is as boundless in its duration, and love in its sympathy, and joy in its fullness. I noticed that on that occasion how much selfishness there is, even in a love like Mr. Linton's, when he so regretted Catherine's blessed release. To be sure, one might have doubted, after the wayward and impatient existence she had led, whether she merited a haven of peace at last. One might doubt in seasons of cold reflection, but not then, in the presence of her corpse. It asserted its own tranquillity, which seemed a pledge of equal quiet to its former inhabitant. Do you believe such people are happy in the other world, sir? I'd give a great deal to know. Flashing back to Mr. Lockwood for a bit, I declined answering Mrs. Dean's question, which struck me as something heterodox. She proceeded. Heterodox is a new experimental treatment to turn people lesbian. I've been on it for about 12 years and it doesn't work. She proceeded. Retracing the course of Catherine Linton, I feel we have no right to think she is, but we'll leave her with her maker. The master looked asleep, and I ventured soon after sunrise to quit the room and steal out to the pure, refreshing air. The servants thought me gone to shake off the drowsiness of my protracted watch. In reality, my chief motive was seeing Mr. Heathcliff. If he had remained among the larches all night, he would have heard nothing of the stir at the Grange, unless perhaps he might catch the gallop of the messenger going to Gimmerton. If he had come nearer, he would probably be aware, from the lights flitting to and fro, and the opening and shutting of the outer doors, that all was not right within. I wished, yet feared, to find him. I felt the terrible news must be told, and I longed to get it over. But how to do it I did not know. He was there, at least a few yards further in the park, now leant against an old ash tree, his hat off, and his hair soaked with the dew that had gathered on the budded branches and fell pattering around him. He had been standing a long time in that position, for I saw a pair of houseels passing and repassing scarcely 3 feet from him, busy in building their nest, and regarding his proximity no more than that of a piece of timber. They flew off at my approach, and he raised his eyes and spoke. "She's dead," he said. "I've not waited for you to learn that. Put your handkerchief away and don't snivel before me. Damn you all, she wants none of your tears." Heathcliff can't even let other people mourn for Cathy. Oh, but possessive men are so attractive. Yeah, it really rules when they don't even like you talking to your male family members. It's very romantic. I was weeping as much for him as her. We do sometimes pity creatures that have none of the feeling either for themselves or others. When I first looked into his face, I perceived that he had got intelligence of the catastrophe, and a foolish notion struck me that his heart was quelled and he prayed, because his lips moved and his gaze was bent on the ground. "Yes, she's dead," I answered, checking my sobs and drying my cheeks. "Gone to heaven, I hope, where we may everyone join her, if we take due warning and leave our evil ways to follow good." "Did she take due warning, then?" asked Heathcliff, attempting a sneer. "Did she die like a saint? Come, give me a true history of the event. How did—" He endeavoured to pronounce the name, but could not manage it, and compressing his mouth, he held a silent combat with his inward agony, defying meanwhile my sympathy with an unflinching, ferocious stare. "How did she die?" he resumed at last, fain, notwithstanding his hardihood, to have a support behind him, for after the struggle he trembled, in spite of himself, to his very finger ends. Poor wretch, I thought. You have a heart and nerves the same as your brother men. Why should you be anxious to conceal them? Your pride cannot blind God. You tempt him to wring them till he forces a cry of humiliation. That's why I'm not a Christian. Quietly as a lamb, I answered aloud. She drew a sigh and stretched herself like a child reviving and sinking again to sleep, and 5 minutes after I felt one little pulse at her heart, and nothing more. "And did she ever mention me?" he asked, hesitating, as if he dreaded the answer to his question would induce details that he could not bear to hear. "Her senses never returned. She recognized nobody from the time you left her," I said. "She lies with a sweet smile on her face, and her latest ideas wandered back to pleasant early days. Her life closed in a gentle dream. May she wake as kindly in the other world." "May she wake in torment," he cried with frightful vehemence, stamping his foot and groaning in a sudden paroxysm of ungovernable passion. Why, she's a liar to the end. Where is she? Not there. Not in heaven. Not perished. Where? Oh, you said you cared nothing for my sufferings, and I pray one prayer. I repeat it till my tongue stiffens. Catherine Earnshaw, may you not rest as long as I am living. You said I killed you? Haunt me then. The murdered do haunt their murderers, I believe. I know that ghosts have wandered the earth. Be with me always. Take any form. Drive me mad, only do not leave me in this abyss where I cannot find you. Oh God, it is unutterable. I cannot live without my life. I cannot live without my soul. He dashed his head against the knotted trunk and, lifting up his eyes, howled. Not like a man, but like a savage beast being goaded to death with knives and spears. I observed several splashes of blood about the bark of the tree, and his hand and forehead were both stained. Probably the scene I witnessed was a repetition of others acted during the night. It hardly moved my compassion. It appalled me. Still, I felt reluctant to quit him so. But the moment he recollected himself enough to notice me watching, he thundered a command for me to go, and I obeyed. He was beyond my skill to quiet or console. I love that Heathcliff spent the whole night outside just banging his head on a tree. Mrs. Linton's funeral Mrs. Linton's funeral was appointed to take place on the Friday following her decease. Until then, her coffin remained uncovered and strewn with flowers and scented leaves in the great drawing room. Linton spent his days and nights there, a sleepless guardian, and, a circumstance concealed from all but me, Heathcliff spent his nights, at least, outside, equally a stranger to repose. I held no communication with him. Still, I was conscious of his design to enter if he could, and on the Tuesday, a little after dark, when my master from sheer fatigue had been compelled to retire a couple of hours, I went and opened one of the windows, moved by his perseverance to give him a chance of bestowing on the faded image of his idol one final adieu. He did not omit to avail himself of the opportunity, cautiously and briefly, too cautiously to betray his presence by the slightest noise. Indeed, I shouldn't have discovered that he had been there, except for the disarrangement of the drapery about the corpse's face, and for observing on the floor a curl of light hair fastened with a silver thread, which, on examination, I ascertained to have been taken from a locket hung round Catherine's neck. Heathcliff had opened the trinket and cast out its contents, replacing them by a black lock of his own. I twisted the two and enclosed them together. They would both have hated that so much. Mr. Earnshaw was, of course, invited to attend the remains of his sister to the grave. He sent no excuse, but he never came, so that, besides her husband, the mourners were wholly composed of tenants and servants. Isabella was not present. Isabella was not asked, sorry. The place of Catherine's interment, to the surprise of the villagers, was neither in the chapel under the carved monument of the Lintons, nor yet by the tombs of her own relations outside. It was dug on a green slope in the corner of the kirkyard, where the wall is so low that heath and bilberry plants have climbed over it from the moor, and peat mould almost buries it. Her husband lies in the same spot now, and they have each a simple headstone above, and a plain grey block at their feet to mark the graves. The end of the chapter. And the end of Cathy. Dear me. Oh yeah, I showed you the picture of Cathy with the pulling all the feathers out of the duvet like a little bitch. I know. Basically, nobody came to the funeral because Cathy was fucking awful. But they only... Well, she wasn't. She had lots and lots of love. Just, weird, fucked up, toxic love, and it was only for Heathcliff and herself. I'm trying to see if there are any more pictures here from this little part of the... Nope. Nope, the pictures are for later in the story. Pretty good. Yeah, thank you all for being here and listening, and thank you, Strepsils, for making an... what do you call it? Antibacterial soothing lozenge that still works even when it's expired. God, I keep nearly sneezing. I can't. Nope. Fuck. Okay, so thank you all for being here. Join me again tomorrow. Oh, actually, no, not tomorrow. Not tomorrow, because tomorrow is Monday. So, if you are not a fake friend, you will be watching Josh do his Roger Rabbit Star Trek crossover fan fiction, which I cannot believe. Every time I say it sounds like something that should not be so much fun. Like, it sounds like something that should not be any fun at all. But fucking so good. It's just so good. I love it. Yep. So thank you all very much. Yes, I'm really hoping I can get some sneezing done today. And I will see you tomorrow, but not until after Josh's stuff, obviously. Or before, so it'll be in the morning or the late afternoon, or it won't be, or I don't care. I don't care. Kathy's dead. She's dead. She's dead. And Heathcliff's been outside smashing his head against a tree all night. Because that's romance. Okay, stay safe. Wash your hands. I'm a doctor. I'm an angel. Bye.